This is Bucks County Community College, American National Government, Poli 111 e-learning, and it is April 23rd, and I'm Instructor John Deal, and I wanted to take care of some question time questions. We've had a little bit of a backlog. I apologize for that, and I will get to everybody's questions as we go forward here, finishing out this challenging semester. Hope everybody's hanging in pretty well with all their work in all their courses. I'm confident from what I've seen that those of you who are hanging in with this class are probably have the work ethic that you're doing the same all the way around in your lives. Really good questions have been coming in. Chris Strasser wanted to know about the Affordable Care Act and what influence a lobbyist had on that, and he wanted to know if that was too much of an influence. And I guess it depends on whether you're a pluralist or an elitist. If you are a pluralist, you would say it's okay to have a lot of different lobbyists having an effect because it all averages out for the best in the end. If you're an elitist, you think that it's a small oligarchy that is feathering their own nest at the expense of everyone else. Whichever you believe is the answer to Chris's question, because lobbyists did have a tremendous effect on the Affordable Care Act. Its gradual implementation was something that the insurance companies were happy to achieve. They were certainly glad that it was not a single payer system, that the federal government did not put the private companies out of business. They were happy that it's possible for states to come up with their own plans that would be acceptable if they were comparable to the Affordable Care Act. Chris also pointed out the idea that net neutrality is an issue, and the cable companies are probably, yes, they probably are making it so that net neutrality is very hard to achieve. The cable companies would like to control what you and I have available to us on the internet. That is having trouble getting through any kind of a reform in Congress, probably because of lobbyist influence. And in the case of Citizens United versus the Federal Elections Commission, as we talked about before, the spending limits were pretty well abandoned for corporations and unions and associations to spend on advertising for campaign elections. The Disclose Act that's been introduced into Congress is a way to try to fight back against that Supreme Court ruling by saying that such advertising has to be transparent, i.e., you as a viewer or a listener should be informed as to where the money for that advertisement came from. Even, for example, the CEO of a corporation would have to say, I am so-and-so and I endorse this message. Another part of the Disclose Act would be would not allow any company that got TARP funds during the bailouts in the beginning of the Great Recession. Those companies would not be allowed to use their money for campaign contributions until they had paid back the TARP funds, and also any foreign corporations or companies with large holdings by foreigners would be allowed to give to these elections. And that's not getting very far, and that's also probably because of the effect of the lobbyists. They love to have the ability to have money to influence the elections. Frank Caligori and Kimberly Gannon wanted to know about gerrymandering and reapportionment and whether that is constitutional or not. And some of you need to know that gerrymandering for political reasons has been found to be constitutional. It's non-justicable. You cannot sue because of that. The case of Veith versus Jubalier in Pennsylvania said that, yes, Pennsylvania, you did gerrymander to try to influence the elections, and that's fine. We can't do anything about that. That's not a federal issue. The federal law does say that you have to have the districts almost identical in the number of people who live in them. That will be enforced by the court. Also, a strict scrutiny is applied to redistricting. Strict scrutiny is applied against those state assemblies that do that if there's any hint that ethnic reasons are involved. That is not constitutional. If that's a primary reason, it could be a partial reason, but if it's a primary reason, you're not allowed to do that. Also, a case of the League of Latin American Citizens versus Poli, the governor of Texas. The court found, and that was in 2005. The court found that the Jubileer case was still a good precedent, and that the lawsuit did not, in this case against Texas, did not prove that it was primarily, the lines were not primarily drawn for ethnic reasons, and therefore the political reasons they were obviously drawn for are fine. So those two cases, Jubileer and Poli case in 2003 and 2005, pretty well have set the standards for redistricting. You remember that there are three levels of scrutiny. One is reasonable basis, one is intermediate test, and then there's a strict test. And the strict test applies to ethnicity. You have to have a really good reason to do anything for ethnic reasons. Gender had the intermediate scrutiny and gender discrimination. And if you're trying to figure out if the government's doing something constitutionally or not, if it's a reasonable basis based on statutes passed by Congress, then you can do those things. So that is the way it goes with redistricting. Like it or not, that's the law of the land. I see that I'm up against the time limit for one of these broadcasts, and I'll be back with you shortly in a matter of a couple of days with many more responses to your questions. Thank you to Chris, Frank, and Kim for those questions, and I'll be getting to more of them as we go through. Go well, and look for another one of these question time responses shortly. Thanks.